Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint. We have a very special first guest today, Mr. Eric Collier. He's a military veteran, an international best-selling co-author, a husband, a motivational speaker on a mission to inspire people to be the best versions of themselves. Thank you so much, man, for joining us today. It's really a pleasure.
Rohan, thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and provide some value, hopefully to your audience. I've been looking forward to this all week. And before we get started, I just want to congratulate you, man, on a job well done. I saw you were the number one business student at GW, man. I think that's awesome.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. So let's just jump right into it, man. Like, I want you to tell me your story, man. Like, I know that in the beginning, I think you mentioned this before, but you grew up in a single parent household with your mom who was grinding all day, all night. Like, what was that like for you? What was that like? What was going through your head during that time?
Yeah, but it was a difficult time. Well, my parents split when I was 4, and so my father, who I looked up to, wasn't in the household. He was still around. We'd see him on the weekends, but majority of the time it was always us with our mother, and it was a tough time. She talks about $10,000 for made for a year, where she's taking care of 3 children, and I can remember when she brought home the government cheese and bologna. It comes in a box and a wrapper, big wrapper. It was an interesting time, and it was my brother and I always talk about how we had 2 pair of pants at times. One was mine and one was his. So it was difficult, but one of the things that was great about it was my mom didn't really complain a lot. We learned a lot from her with her mom isms and the work that she put in. We saw her go from cleaning houses, not spending the night, but working overnight at the railroad station, cleaning up the railroad station and the bathrooms and things, to eventually where she was the project manager for the projects there at the house. So we've had some tough times, but we've had leadership in the household as well, working through struggles. But it was even tough with our relationship as we got older, growing up in the blended houses, because of when my parents
Yeah.
split at 4, they eventually married around the time I got to high school. And so now we're blending families. And in one home, we're dealing with alcohol, drug addiction,
What was
domestic
it like for
violence.
you? Like when like you talk about like the alcoholism, the drugism with you,
Yeah.
can you tell me a story about like when that got to like a breaking point at all, or where that just got way too much for like you young guys to handle? Like, what was that like?
Man, it was really tough. Like I said, throughout high school, man, we had to deal with it. And we saw our mother being treated in a way that she didn't bring us up, raise us to treat
Yeah.
women. So it was difficult for us, and we didn't want our mom taken advantage of, and we didn't appreciate being pushed aside by either household. So it was tough fighting for the two of us, my brother and myself. And but we rode through it. It built us into some strong individuals, and we really learned that we have some power inside of us. The mindset that we have, we're fighters, man. That's a big thing, man. And whenever you go through things, we learn that it's only us. We got to get through it ourselves. And when you have your parents that like I said, they love us. We talked about it now, but at the time, it felt like they just left us out there. So it was a difficult time, man. Really, mindset wise, it drove us to some different. Well, to myself, some really tough habits. Drinking. Really wasn't doing what I needed to do in school. Just behavior wise, it was tough, and some bad leadership decisions, man, almost cost me my brother's life. So just different things,
Really?
man. We
But like, what
yeah,
do you said it cost you your brother's life? Like, what do you? I mean, if you don't want to get into that, that's perfectly fine. But I was just kind of
no.
curious, like, what happened?
Yeah, it was hanging out with the wrong people, making the
Oh,
bad
yeah,
decisions.
makes sense.
And so, one night we decided that we were gonna retaliate on somebody who jumped on my cousin,
Oh my
and
God.
so that led to payback,
Mhm.
and left my brother laying in the street with stab wounds in
Damn.
the chest and in his face, and we about lost him that night. And so I learned a valuable lesson, man,
Right.
that night.
Well, like when you say that valuable lesson of like, what was that lesson of? Was it more so because I mean, right now the lesson that you kind of preach is just do the hard work because no one's gonna do it for you. Like,
Right.
how does your childhood kind of play into the lesson that you say now? Is it kind of influenced through your mom who, like in a way, just kept doing the hard work? She kept doing all those jobs. even
Right.
if she didn't want to, but she knew she had to. Like, how does that lesson, like, how was your childhood, the stuff that you saw there, like the stuff with your brother, play into the role and the message you spread now?
What was something my mom always told me: what you reap, what you sow. And so with that, she'd also say that what you do in the dark soon comes to light. And so, you do things and you think you're getting away with them, and it comes back to you. But what we've learned is when you watch her, the nights that she was reading, the nights that she was studying, she was planting seeds for her future. And we didn't know what it was. We couldn't see it. We just knew mom was always working. And we had free time when she wasn't around. So we could get in trouble if we wanted to or what
Yeah.
have you. But, you know, eventually it paid off for her, and she's a fighter. And so it just helped our mindset. So now when you look at where we are today, the one thing we did is we learned not to give up. Well, no matter what you're going through, no matter how bad it gets, when I'm sitting there 352 days out of a year struggling to get back to my government contracting pay that our salary that I had, I knew I couldn't give up. I had too much on the line. And that's what my mom taught us, is just never give up. Always keep fighting. She always told us that, because it's just something that it's built for it, man. We built for that. I can't even go deep in it. But when I learned about my brother and my leadership, that was key. People are watching you. People watch what you do. People watch what you listen to, what you say. And so when my mom would say something to me like, Eric, I know you've done something. I don't know what it is, but sooner or later I'm going to find out. That was what that saying was. What you do in the dark will soon come to light. And so she was right. And so I was doing things that was leading my brother down the wrong path. And I learned that he's too valuable for me to make those decisions.
Like, then, do you think that, I guess, that idea of integrity of like what you do in the dark will always come to light? Like, do you think that plays a role in self confidence at all, or I guess your ability to like get out of that mental quicksand that you talk about? Is it like a big thing at all? Like, what, I guess, in a way, what determines how you get out of that mental quicksand? Like, what key factors are
Well, if
influencing
you
how you get out?
I'm sorry. Well, when you look at mental quicksand, and what I do, what I call it is mental quicksand. It's that doubt, fear, and worry that keeps you from moving forward. I lived in that for so long. The doubts about your abilities, the skills that you have, your inability to do things, even when you're capable of doing it, you won't even give it a shot. And so when you talk about mental quicksand and how you want to move forward with your life, there are people out there who will graduate from high school, who will graduate from college and say, I'm done. I don't have to go to school anymore. I don't have to learn anything else. Oh, now I got the job. I got the salary. I got the spouse. I got the kids. I'm good. And they're no longer learning. And at the same time, they're no longer moving forward, but there's something inside of them that says, hey, you should try this. This is something I really want to do. There's a dream that I have, but nobody's moving forward with it because their mind says, I can't do that. I don't have the time. Nobody will listen to me. What if I let some of my family down? What if I lose money? What if I do this? And so all of that thing keeps you in that mental quicksand and you never move forward. It took me 12 years to decide that I was going to move forward with my dream to become a speaker, because I hemmed and hawed for so many years. I was loyal to bad behavior or bad habits and behaviors that I had created when the time I thought I was done. And so because of that, I led my family down the wrong path for a long time. And so I had to bounce back and do something that I've always wanted to do, something I love to do. And it took that moment of being laid off for 352 days to bring it to fruition.
Well, how do you think that most, I guess, like, how can young people escape the mental quicksand like sooner? Because I feel like most college kids right now, I guess they go into college and a lot of people experience a lot of self doubt. I think COVID made that worse just because everyone got isolated. But like, from your perspective, how can people who are currently suffering from mental quicksand and that self doubt and like that lack of faith and self confidence, how can they, I guess, build that or improve upon it now? Like, just how can they do that?
Well, I think, a lot of people look at COVID, and COVID was a tough time, but it was a time where you had a chance to do the one thing that you really need to drive you forward. And that is to sit down with you and really understand who you are and what it is you're here to do. I think that's very important, because if you don't know what you want, where you want to go, that's where you end up, right? And so it took me a while to sit down with myself and realize that my job, I liked it. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I loved to do. What I was doing on a job wasn't giving me the joy and the happiness. So I think when you sit down and think about who you are, what you're here to do, it's going to help you move forward. Second thing I think you definitely want to understand is that your life's not over. You got to continue to learn. You got to continue to put something in here that helps you with your confidence, that helps you see the dream that you have. You know, I one of the things that the guy helped, well, I'll give you this. There was 3 questions the guy that helped me realize I was playing small asked. And he said, what are you doing now that, what have you done over the last 5 years that has gotten you closer to accomplishing your dreams or increase your salary significantly? It was easy for me. I hadn't done anything. I was oh God, it's Monday. Thank God it's Friday. The weekend was here. We'd go barbecue, the boxing matches, the football games, you name it. I was there listening, watching TV or enjoying it. And so I was wasting time. Then he said, well, if you hadn't done anything the last 5 years, what are you doing now to change things? That was easy too. I wasn't doing anything. I was just getting out of the military. I got what I believed to be a great salary. And I just moved forward. And the reason I thought it was great was because it was better than what my parents had. So I thought, hey, I made it. I'm doing well. And so from there, he said, well, if you're not doing anything now to change things, he said, if you keep doing the same thing from here on out, what do you think your next 5, 10, or 15 years are going to look like? And that's when it hit me. It hit me hard, man. I was like, oh man, because I wasn't happy.
So true though. I definitely had that moment with myself where like I look at the past like 4 years of my life and it's just been school, school, school.
Yeah.
Next 5, 4 years it's gonna be school, school, school. It's like I don't know. I think a lot of people lack that thought of I guess being in the present because they're so focused on if they're not focused on what they're gonna if they can't like follow the steps of what they're doing now and how it's gonna end up like not being in their favor. Like I
Yeah.
think a lot of students right now, though, like people who go to school specifically, they view school as like the biggest. They view going to school every single day as like the key to success. But then when you leave school, I mean,
Right.
that's when like reality starts to hit. I think that's when most people just take the very standard path of like getting a job, saving up, getting savings, and then retiring. I think you mentioned this in one of your previous talks, but I just don't think that works anymore.
Right.
Think it's very outdated. I think like have you if you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, he refers to that as like the rat race. And
Yes.
that for me is like the biggest. I'm so scared of ending up in that rat race. That's what really like pushes me now.
Yeah.
Um like do you ever like what kind of pushes you? I know that you have a lot of like with your wife, right? You're
Right.
up high for your kids and your wife. Is that like the biggest thing pushing you to I guess leave the rat race in a way or like I guess like yeah, like what's pushing you to leave that rat race?
Well, those are my drivers, man. That why I do what I do is my family. I really want to set them up with the mindset that you don't have to do like I did and accept life the way it was coming at you or accept life the way that it was because that's the way you were taught. You know what I mean? When I look at the way I was living that way because those I grew up around, those I learned from lived that way. So I think when you look at and I think when you look at the school, you spend all this time in school, just like my time in the military, and you get out and you're like, what's next?
Yeah,
But
exactly. The
as you
question of
say,
what's next, like
yeah,
most people just can't answer that.
yeah. And that's and like you said, because you can't answer that, you go to what you know. And what do you know? Your parents said you have to get a good job, good with benefits, good salary, and you get a house, you get a car, you get the spouse, you get all of this stuff, and you have the benefits, and you retire at 64. But that's not it because you look at it, I was 30 years old, 34 more years, I would be 64. What am I going to do in that time frame?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
And I got people who are retiring right now that I work with that I know, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. And some of them are scared to retire. They won't retire because they're scared of being at home. They're scared to have that opportunity to do that one thing that they said they're always going to do when they retire, go out and really enjoy themselves. They won't do it.
it's
That's that mental quicksand.
that's so true. Because I mean, if you're 30 years, I view it as very like logical. Of if you are working, if you're taking 4 years of school and maybe like a graduate degree, after that, your life is just work.
Right.
In my opinion, I see jobs as like as a short-term solution to like a long-term problem, where like
Right.
the long-term problem is just like financial stability. But I don't know. For me, I feel like a job only provides very short-term solutions because after 5 or 6 or 10 years, you're gonna hate what you're doing, like no matter what, in my opinion. Like I know
Right.
you were in the military, you worked in the Navy, right? You had like
Yes.
you had 12-hour shifts, and then you have like a second job after that? Like what was
Yes.
that like for you, man? Like how were you? What was your mindset during that whole time? Because I feel like most people, even a 12-hour shift would just ruin them. Like they'd be done for the week.
Right. Well, I can tell you, working two jobs, my wife and I were discussing it. I stopped working two jobs last June. As a job I had worked for 12 years, and we talked about it. We've known each other since we were 19. I've worked since I was 19 for majority of those years, two jobs. And that's because that's what I know. I've got to do what I got to do. When things go wrong, I always revert to, because everybody has a go-to. Instead of whining and complaining, I go get a job because I feel like I got the bills got to be paid. People have to eat, right, and be clothed. So that's my go-to. And so I've worked two jobs the majority of my life. And when I was in the military, I worked as a security guard as well. But one of the things that I did that really set me up, and again, I was just looking at what my senior chief called the dollars. He called them Gitas, right? I was just looking at the money, and so I would work on the hangar deck directing aircraft and for 12 hours. And then at night, I would go upstairs after those 12 hours and I would work another 4 hours at least doing on the job training.
Wow.
And that's how I spent my time at sea. And so that's something that many people have to do, but they won't do it. And here's what I'm talking about. When you know it's time for a change, it won't happen until you really and seriously feel the pain of not changing. I can tell you this: there's a young lady that used to work with us when I worked that second job, and she would do some escorting to help the contractors get around the building. She was going through a tough time where her water would get cut off. She was almost evicted. Her lights would get cut off, and she would come around and she would ask some of the guys for money. She came to me one day. I said, "Well, I can't do anything for you." I said, "But you can apply to get this job, and you'll get more pay, and you'll have more opportunity to take care of what you need to take care of." And you know what she said?
What she said?
She said no.
Yeah,
She said no.
that fear
I
rejection.
can't clean toilets in this building I work in. I'm like, look, these people don't pay your bills. Your
Yes,
lights go off. You're sitting there by yourself. Nobody's giving you any money. But that's how she rolled.
yeah. I think like you think that was from fear of. I feel like most people have a fear of rejection that they don't even try.
Yeah.
Where like there's a glaring opportunity. Like life presents you several opportunities a day, but
Yes.
pass them down because I guess you're fearful of like, oh my God, if I fail, I lose all my money, I lose all my savings, like my family's gonna hate me. Like I feel like there's a very common fear for people.
Yes.
Um, I guess like going back to the like your life story, I mean, I know that you talked with Les Brown at some point during your career. What was
Yes.
that like? Like what was he like when you were talking to him?
Wow. I always go back to those conversations because it wasn't just one. And it was, when you talk about mental quicksand, this is the biggest example that I can tell you. I knew, so I was 30 when I had that aha moment of the guy explaining to me how my life was going to go over those next 5, 10, 15 years. And so I began to read, which is something I didn't do before. But that one of the first books I read was Live Your Dreams by Les Brown. I then had the opportunity to listen to his cassette tapes. I had a batch of cassette tapes that I used. You know what those are?
Not really. I'm too young. I'm too young.
I had to ask. I forgot about that. You know, it's easy for me, but they had the little. Oh wow!
That's so embarrassing.
It's not. It's cool. It's just the
So
funniest thing
embarrassing.
because I go back to those moments where I would be sitting around listening to my parents talk about how they were listening to the radio instead of watching TV. I'm like, what? It's okay. But yeah, so they had these things called cassette tapes that would fit in a
So
Walkman.
embarrassing. Like, I feel like my parents do that to me all the time. They'll be like,
It's all good. But I had a thing that I would carry around in my car. I would go to what they call Automobile University, and I would listen to those day in and day out. And I finally got to the point where I'm working with Booz Allen in Hamilton. I'm sitting there with a guy I had just met. Actually, he's now a good friend of mine, and we're talking about what we want to do. And I told him I wanted to meet Les Brown. I wanted to be a motivational speaker. And he said, well, why aren't you doing it? And I started giving him all of these excuses. But what you don't realize is when you start talking about what you want to do, you're putting the wheels in motion for something to happen later on. Remember what my mom said, what you do in the dark will soon come to light, right? The seeds you plant, you reap what you sow. And so I started talking about that. And then down the line, I had an opportunity to attend Les Brown's, he was signing autographs for his book and at one of the local golf courses. I'm like, hey, I'm going. I left work early. I rode over there. Boom, I get there. He signs my autograph. I really didn't know what to say. I couldn't say anything to him, but thank you. And I rode out. So he had another event and I attended. My son and I attended, which was great because I wanted my son to see that, because you can't become what you can't see sometimes. You got to see it. And so we're there and I get a chance to attend that. My wife and I get a chance to attend an event at his house. And I'm like, I'm all in. Let's go. And finally, I reached out to him and got him on the phone. And he says, hey, man, he didn't say, hey, man. He says, hey, you have a great voice. He said, maybe I can teach you how to speak. Right. Now, he doesn't sound like that, but that's my little, right?
Crazy compliment.
Yeah. I was blown away. And you know what I did? I go, no, not for me. No, not me. No. And so I'm like, wow. I tried to get him back on the phone. I couldn't get him back on the phone. Years later, I get laid off and I see him. I attend a Get Motivated seminar in Arlington, Virginia. And there was Damon John, Willie Jolly, and Les Brown. They're just, boom, they're just blowing it away, right? I'm loving it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm ready to get started speaking. I'm calling Les Brown. And I had his number. I still had his number saved. Yeah. And I called him up. He said, hey, are you ready to do this? You ready to do that? And I'm like, no. That sounds like and so I hesitated again, man. And it would take me till 2020 when we hit COVID to actually get the opportunity to work with Les Brown, man. And that was something you go, wow, man. If you would, and you say to yourself in hindsight, you go, man, if I would have only done this back in 2004 when I said I wanted to do it, but I couldn't do it because I wasn't in the right mind frame. You know what I mean? You had to go through some things to get there. And what I went through being laid off, almost losing a house, losing my car, going through all of those different financial struggles that we had, our relationship struggles, just the difficult times. I would have never been ready to go at 2004 because I wouldn't have approached it in the manner that I did in 2020. Now, don't get me wrong. You want to get started as soon as possible. But man, if you can get it started in the right mindset, knowing that you got to change something because your life is you're not designed to stay where you're at right now. You're going to graduate. I'm pretty sure you're going to graduate top of your class, but that's great. But at the top of that mountain, you got another mountain that you got to climb. And what is that? I always say it's the gap between what you could become. That's the biggest gap you got to face right now. You're going to be how old when you graduate, when you finish with school?
20 or 21.
20 or 21. Man, that's awesome. 20 or 21, you're going to graduate. You're going to be finished. And so now the question, like you said earlier, what's next? That's a question we got to keep on our mind, because when you stop asking that question and stop answering that question, and you really need to dive down deep in it, you got to look at that, because if you don't, you're going to get stuck in that mental quicksand and you're going to be like, oh, my life is done. I'm making some really good money here. Wow, I'm highly educated. I've got it going on. I got the suits. I got the cars. I got all of this. But all of that means nothing down here. I can tell you that when I made my first six-figure salary, first of all, it took me a mindset that I had to change, because I was thinking $50,000 was the most I'd ever make. But when I made six figures for the first time, I'm like, wow, this is great. But it wasn't the feeling I was looking for. So you want to live with meaning, value, and purpose. I think that's very important. If you live like that and you approach every day like that, like you said, you have a choice every day. Are you going to live your life, like I said, what I call greatness over mediocrity, or are you going to choose, or the other way? So that's something I get real hyped up about that now, because it's just, I see so many people, man, they got potential and talent and skills, and they've never left home. They do the same thing they've been doing for the last 20 years. They get up and they do nothing. And that's the tough part to see.
What do you think about excuses in general? Like, I feel like a lot of people make excuses just because I guess it's an easy way out in a way. But from your experience, like what's your experience with excuses, and how do people, I guess, like throw them to the side and like actually do the hard fucking work? Like, how do they do that in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I was there. I mean, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I can't do this because I'm not educated enough. Nobody will believe me because of where I come from, what I look like. You make all kind of excuses. The man's trying to hold me back. They don't want this to happen for me. All these different things, but they're just examples of your fear. You look at there's a fear that we have when you look at how people view us, what people are going to think, especially people who are close to us, people that we look up to. There's a fear there that people will show when it comes time to do. People will always say, oh man, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it just like this. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to make it happen. And then they'll start for a week and they're done because there's something else that's missing. And they don't understand why it's important to do it. And so,
When you say like the why part of it is the most
yeah.
important part to like, damn, I think that's pretty true. I think if you don't have like a real solid reason, I guess for giving the example of making like a lot of money in a way, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have like a really solid reason of man, I want to retire my parents, oh man, I want to do this, I want to do that, like
Right.
motivation can only take you so far. I think it's
Yeah.
discipline that gets you like that to that next level. Like, how did you develop discipline in your own life in a way, or like how did you incorporate that concept?
Right. Well, it's something, it's funny. I look at that word discipline and I never really said I'm going to do this and stay disciplined. That's not something I ever thought about because discipline for me was always get my butt whipped when I messed up by my mom. So, but I never looked at it like this. But when you look at my time in the military, you look at my time in sports, you look at just my time of understanding that when it comes down to it, I got to do what I have to do. That mindset kind of creates, well, not kind of, but it creates that discipline. I know where I don't want to be. I know where I want to be. And so I get up and I do the things that I need to do. And so it's very important that we understand why you do it. And I think, like I said, when I look at my 3 children, now I have 6 grandchildren, I look at that and I say, well, I have to keep going because I want to be the example for them to get up, to get up and go get what you want in life. It's very important. I lived for so long believing that I didn't have the power to create the life that I want to live. I didn't have the ability and the skills to really reach people or to help people or just do what I do now. And I'm not where I want to be, but I'm definitely far better than what I was. And so it's just that drive to get up every day, even when I don't feel like doing it, just to get up and do something. Because every time I can tell you this, you ever go to the gym and you really don't feel like working out, but you're like, I got to go to the gym. You get one of your best workouts ever in the gym when you go in that mindset. It's serious. It's crazy. I go, oh man, it's leg day. Oh man, I don't feel like doing legs. But I get to the gym, it's like, all right, cool, let's go. All right, what else can we put on there? What else can we do?
It's weird for me too because I feel like when I go when I don't want to, I end up like having this psychological thing where it's like I try to prove to myself at the gym that like I am disciplined by going extremely hard versus if I just go in because I know that I'm going the next day. I
Yeah,
don't like really push it. But when I in my head I have thoughts of like quitting or not going, subconsciously I'll just go even harder. I
yeah.
don't know why that even happens either.
But it's that drive, right? You want to be better, and you're probably a competitor. You probably compete with yourself. You find a way to compete with yourself. All right, cool. I did 10 of these. Let's go. I can give you an example when in the military, when I first started in the boot camp, and then we'd go do our tests. And I'd get to 30, and all of a sudden I'd slow down with push-ups. Oh my gosh, it's hard. And it was just a mind thing. So I saw something the other day. It said the mind stretched beyond its where it is right now can never bounce back, right? I think it's how it went. But so if you think about it and you go out and you push yourself to the limit, right? We get to the point, a lot of times people will push themselves to a point where they believe they're tired. They start listening to their mind. Oh, I can't take it anymore. I can't do it anymore. And if you push it past that, now you just prove to yourself that was a lie. And so as you do that, now you get better, incrementally better, right? Habits of Atomic Habits talks about that. And you get the book Atomic Habits, I'm sorry, talks about that. But you getting it incrementally better starts right here. Anything you do starts with the mind. When you go and you approach your books, when you approach your studying, it's right here. I don't feel like doing it. But if you wait to the last minute, you got no choice. You got to get in there and dive in there and you stay focused. And that's the focus that you can have on a daily basis instead of waiting to the last day. So there's a man, it's amazing how when we talk to ourselves, we talk about, you said motivation only gets you far. You're right. But you have to be able to motivate yourself. You can't wait on other people to motivate you. You got to be able to motivate yourself at those times when nobody's around. I get up at 2:30 in the morning and Les Brown's not there. Eric Thomas, none of the great motivators are there to inspire me to go work out. It's all here. I got to do that. And so when I get out of bed, I know I got to go work out. I got to go do what I got to do. Whether I work out or come in here and I work on my business, that's something I got to do, because if I do it now, as I plant these seeds, sooner or later the harvest is going to come.
You tell me a story of where you were like, because David Goggins talks about sometimes where he gets up in the morning and he looks at his shoes for like 30 minutes when he goes on a run because he does not want to do it at all. Do you
Yeah.
have any stories of where you've like waking up at 2:30, and you just like look at all the stuff you have to do today and you're like, damn, I really do not want to do this stuff. Like, can you tell me a story when you've been like close to quitting or
Yeah.
close to like just being like, fuck it, man, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Give me stories like that.
Yeah, I do, man. And so when you first get started doing something, you have this vision, but what you don't realize is the pain that comes with it. The work that you put in, there's some pain, there's some struggles that you put in. And so there have been times when I would wake up, and I'll give you an example. When I really started working out, I was doing Insanity, and that workout was a beast for somebody who hadn't worked out in a long time. I thought I was an athlete until we did burpees and I almost fell through the television. So, but there
But
were
burpees are
days.
actually my worst. I hate doing burpees so much. They're like, we used to get punished with them during when I used to play soccer.
Yeah.
We used to have to do like 50 burpees if you messed up. That shit
Woo.
killed me every single time. I was on the floor like crying every single time.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was rough. And so those days when you wake up, or those days after the leg day when you're really sore, and you're like, oh man, if I lay here, I'll be really good. And I'll just I'll relax. Maybe 5 more minutes. Oh, okay, 5 more minutes. And next thing you know, an hour's gone by, you falling asleep or what
I,
have you. So I've done that. But so I had to move my alarm clock. I played tricks with my head. I moved my alarm clock. Now I got to get out of bed. Why get back in bed? Just keep on moving. And I just kind of got to the point now where I just get up. It's routine. It's automatic. I was told when I first started on this professional development journey that if 30 days to create a habit. And so you get on that move, and even though it hurts, you keep moving. And so you might miss a day. So now, okay, I got 3 days straight. All right, let's see if I can get 4 days straight. All right, let's see if I can get 6 days. Let's see if I can get 7. And you keep pushing it through that. And what you find is, again, mentally, you become stronger because you realize that the pain is temporary. This too shall pass. And so you got to keep moving, man. It's a tough one. I can tell you many days I'll stay up. You stay up late, right? If you stay up late, your plan is to get up at 2:30. If you stay up till 10:30, 11 o'clock, you only got a little bit of time to sleep. And so it's difficult to get up. So now you got to be disciplined enough to go to bed at 8, 9 o'clock and get up at 2:30. So otherwise, you're just laying there and you're thinking, nah, not today.
just imagine, man, waking up at 2:30, like what, like give me like a day in the life of, like give me the day in the life, what's your routine?
All right. Well, it started when I was just working 6 to 2:30. And so I'd worked to 6 to 2:30, and I started doing Insanity. And I said, well, I need to get up earlier. So I got up earlier. I would get up at 3 o'clock, and 3:30. And so then I decided I had to get a job elsewhere. So then I started getting up 3 o'clock. And so then it just moved to 2:30. So it's and it became 2:30 because in that process where I had to move jobs, it was because I lost the job from 6 to 2:30. So I had to go find another one. So I was working 2 jobs. And so I was working as a custodian and a contractor. And so you got 12 hours of work. You got to find time to work out. You got to find time to do what you need to do. So getting up on the front end worked out better for my schedule because when I came home, my wife wanted my time, my kids, my grandkids wanted my time.
Yeah.
So I had to find time for myself. At that time, nobody's getting up and saying, hey, I need to talk to you about something. Nobody's having any problems. At that time, it's just me and the workout. So that's why it got to 2:30. And then it's just now it's at 2:30. It's just there, 2:30. Yeah, it didn't. Like I
That's
said,
great. I remember I during college I tried to wake up at like 5:30 every day, and I don't know if you ever experienced the same thing, but like by the time 6 or 5 comes around, I'm just wiped. Like I'm so completely exhausted. I mean,
yeah.
how do you battle through exhaustion, or how do you, I guess, like persevere through the thoughts of saying like, man, you're too tired for this, or man, it's just one day, just take a day off, or man, like who cares? No one's gonna look, no one's gonna see if you take a day off. Like, how do you battle those thoughts and I guess come out victorious in a way?
Yeah. Well, it's tough to do that when it's easier to do it when you're not seeing any success, right? Because you're thinking, it's not going to work, it's not happening. But when you see success and you see that all the work you put in is paying off little by little, then you're like, okay, well, what else can I do? Okay, what else can I get done?
All right, so we just had some technical difficulties, but we are back. So let's just continue where we picked up, I guess. So
Okay.
I want to move on towards like the latter half of your life in a way.
Okay.
What are you doing now? Like, do you have any stuff that you are working on, like any projects you're working on at all?
So, what I'm doing now, I'm really excited about what I do now. And I had a chance to MC an event this weekend, and one of the groups on there was titled or called Side Hustle, and I think that's it's so big when you think about it because what I do now, I've been an analyst for years. When I stopped directing aircraft, I crossed over to the analytical side of the house. And so I've been working on the analytical side of the house for Navy for probably about a lot older than you are.
Yeah,
Like, you hate to hear that. You hate to say that. You're like, oh
yeah.
man, for a while.
It's harder to. I didn't realize I was eight. I didn't like truly like process that I was 18 years old until like fairly recently. Because for me, it's just like for me, it feels like I'm old. Like I'm aging so fast. Oh my God, I'm already 18. I'm turning 19 soon. But like, there's people out here way older than me. It's kind of really weird to think about.
Yeah, I always say it's interesting because I was in your seat where I would come in and I was the youngest guy in the room. Now I'm the oldest guy in the room, one of the oldest guys.
I am like, it's really weird being because a lot of the incoming freshman class for GW is like most of the people in that class are older than me. I'm like
Oh,
exceptionally young for my age in a way, but I
wow.
still keep going.
Yeah, that's cool, man. You get great accomplishments getting in there young. But so on the analytical side for years, and that was something, like I said, I worked really hard to get, and I really enjoyed it. But I recently crossed over to the personal development side of the house, and that's where my passion is. That's what I love to do. And so I work with high school and middle school students to mentor and provide social emotional support. I also work with career professionals, and I also I've had the opportunity to work on two international best-selling projects, collaborated on those books, and I've had a chance to speak internationally and on stage. And that's something I really love to do because, like I said before, I wasn't there. I didn't see it for myself. And at those times when I was really low, it hurt. So right now, I work on a daily basis. Like I said, I still get up early 2:30 in the morning. I work on myself with my business, what I need to do to create opportunities for myself. I host a podcast as well. And then in the evening, I come home and I just keep that rotation in. I also coach Little League Baseball, and we just finished up 10-0-2. We
That's
got the
crazy. That's
championship
really,
game
really
on
good.
Saturday.
That's really good.
That's a beautiful. I love that part of the house too, man. Those guys, the work they put in, I love them, man. I love that.
So you said that you work with like middle school students and high school students. I was just kind of curious, like and for what you know right now, what is like the most common thing or the biggest challenge that is stopping high school students and middle school students from reaching their full potential? Like, what's that thing that's stopping them from like reaching those new levels?
Right. Well, I had an opportunity, man. It blew my mind, but I understood it because you only believe in what you can see a lot of times. And so a lot of students that when you ask them what their dreams are, they don't have a dream. They don't have a vision for the future. They don't see anything for themselves outside of what they see everybody in their neighborhood doing. And so when I was at this school and the young students said, I don't even think I'll make it past 18, that
Whoa,
that hit me.
that's weird. Yeah,
Oh man,
that's dang.
yeah, it hit me. That hurt, and it's a challenging time. And I get it. A lot of things going on at home. And if they're not nurturing the mind, if they're not teaching you to focus on improving yourself, that's huge. When I first heard about what was called self-help at the time, but personal development, it seems so weird because you're groomed and it's not intentional all the time, but you're taught to believe the negative things about yourself faster than you are the positive things. And so when you look at somebody trying to come out of that bucket, you talk about the crabs in the bucket. When you're trying to come out of that bucket of negativity, people are pulling you back. Either they're pulling you down by grabbing your leg and holding you, but mentally that's what they're doing. And they're telling you those things that you don't have what it takes. Nobody will ever trust you enough to do that. Look at who you are, where you came from. Only the rich get richer. All these different things, man. You're not educated enough. All of these things. They don't say that, hey, you have the ability to overcome these things, but if you go out and educate yourself, if you work on yourself, if you have a dream and you write these things down every day, if you focus on a better future for yourself, but if you do it, importantly, if you're doing it not just for you, but for other people. And I think that's the key, getting it started and working on ourselves and focusing on dreams to accomplish for ourselves is huge. But it's when you start doing an overall, what I call movement, when you're working on helping other people, that's when you realize that life is bigger than me. And that's when things change. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just getting students to dream. When they don't believe in it, they're taught to believe that it's a fantasy world. It'll never happen for you. It carries on into your adulthood, and eventually you start believing that as well. So it's get them to dream. That's the big thing. Get them to dream and start putting those steps forward to get that action, man. Action is, wow. If you look at all the books you have in your library, if you held them all, that's great. But it's not until you start putting the tips, the techniques, the tools to action that you'll be
Yeah.
able to accomplish those things. So a
Like
lot of people,
most people just like read a bunch of books, but it takes someone who's actually dedicated and I guess determined to make a change to
yeah,
what's in those books. I remember I personally read a lot. I read like a book a week pretty much. And
awesome.
for the first like couple of months of me doing that, I'd read like these really informational books. I'd read like I think I read something like 12 books at that time, and they were all so helpful and great. But I don't know. I think it was like something within me thinking that the only people who read these books are people who are already successful, that I shouldn't even be reading these. Like, I have no business doing this. I'm not going to become successful because of it. But like, I don't know about for you, but for me, what really made me want to, I guess, be better in a way was just experiencing such a detrimental loss that
Mhm.
it felt like, okay, the only thing I can do and should do is go up from here. I'm not sure if you had the same thing, but like, did you ever have a time where you just experienced like a massive failure? And like, how did you, I guess, bounce back from dealing with that?
Which time? Which time? I think the big shocker for me, the big shocker, man. I started playing sports at 6 years old. Football, baseball, I played basketball, wrestled. I started playing at 6 years old. And I knew after my freshman year of high school that baseball was going to be it for me. And so my focus was to become a Major League Baseball player. And when I got that tryout and they told me no, it was devastating. And when I didn't get a second shot, oh, it hurt me to no end. And so at that point, I was stuck in that mental quicksand. That's where it started for me. I said, well, what do I do next? Well, ended up, I got married. I got my son. Then 15 months later, my daughter. And then 15 months later, my other daughter. And I'm 24 years old and I got 3 kids and a family. I'm trying to
Jeez.
take care of everybody. And so at 30, that's when it was like, man, what am I doing here? So that was huge. I had to overcome that because I was hurt. I couldn't even watch baseball. It was so hurt for me. I didn't know what to do with myself because I didn't think I had anything up here to give. And so that was one, a devastating blow, something you don't control everything. And we always want to control things. But a really tough, devastating blow for me was after working so hard to get into that 6-figure income, getting laid off. And then I thought I was going to get back to work with like in a month. But here I went on a roller coaster ride of 352 days. And through that, man, I realized a lot of things that I had to stop trying to control everything. I had to realize that I had to do what I needed to do, which was put the work in on myself. And not only that, I had to pick my wife up. I had to pick my family up. I had to do everything I could do to make things happen. And it was something that I learned about myself was that I have what it takes. And that's what everybody needs to learn. I now say that adversity sets the stage from which great feats have been accomplished. And so when you think about being on stage, you think about the cameras, and you think about the lights rolling and people being on stage, because that's when you need to go to work. There are going to be people who are watching you who are saying he's not going to bounce back from that. There are going to be people who are saying he might be able to. And there are going to be people who are saying he can do it. But it doesn't matter what any of them think. It all depends on what you think. And that's the key. Those lights are on and you're struggling down there and you're at your lowest point and they were getting ready to take our house. The lights are going off. The water's being off. All of that stuff. You got to bounce back. That's the only thing you can do. You can focus on what you can do, which was work on myself, continue to bust my butt, and that's it. That's the only thing you can do. Sooner or later, as the scripture says, this too shall pass. Right? And so you got to know when you're down on your luck, now it's time to get up and put your work in because this too shall pass. And I'm a big believer of that now. My wife could not believe the day we got the foreclosure letter that I balled it up and threw it in the trash and told her it's not going to happen. And it didn't. It didn't. It didn't.
Takes
It was
guts.
tough. But I told her it's not going to happen and we still got that house. So
How do you think young people should manage? I think the fear of rejection or being like ostracized is so prevalent. Just
yeah,
because social media, I guess, can clip something and then people can be make fun of that for so much and so long.
right.
I do think people should, I guess, like reverse their minds and their mindsets to not like really care about what other people think. Um, like how do you think people should manage that or I guess view that issue?
Well, my dad always said, first of all, when you think about rejection, my dad always says the worst somebody can say is no. And that's true, right? The worst they can say is no. And no, I'm pretty sure everybody's heard no before in their life. And it's just how you respond to no is important. So if you start to dwell on the fact that you've been turned down, if you start to whine and moan and complain about no, you'll stay right there in that moment forever. But you got to bounce back and understand that that's what is it? Not scripture, but there's a quote that says that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond. And so many people spend that 90% of the time focusing on what happened to them that they never respond. And so that's why you got to respond to in a positive manner to bounce back. Something else you got to think about too, man. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks about you and your efforts. You have one thing in mind that you are working on improving yourself. Why? What is your why for your family? Then it doesn't matter what anybody else is concerned. All that matters is that you get that done for your family. There's a lot of things. There's organizations that you want to support. If you're doing things for that organization that people think is crazy, it doesn't matter what they think. All that matters is how your actions affect that organization. What positive things can you bring in for that organization and those individuals? That's all that matters. What anybody else thinks about you and your actions does not matter. So if you think it's a crazy looking picture and you post it and somebody says anything, so what? Who cares? I've had many people quote I had a TikTok video that went 419,000 views and
Damn,
so
damn, that's
so many
really good. That's really good.
so many thousands of likes, and I think I had one or two dislikes. I'm like 419,000 likes to two. I'm cool. I'm good. I'm good. Right. So I think it doesn't matter. It's how you respond. And so everybody you're not going to connect with, everybody's not going to agree with what you do, and that's okay. But
Yeah,
don't allow them to keep you stuck. I've had people tell me many a times, I want to be a Major League Baseball player. You might want to get a plan B. And that's where people fail. They go get a plan B that's not in line with their passion, their desire. If I had a plan B that was in line with my baseball dream, I would have never gone that 10 years where I was struggling in my mental quicksand. I would have immediately bounced into coaching. I would have immediately bounced into training and conducting camps, finding a way to get into the major leagues or staying in baseball in my passion instead of having a plan B, which I didn't have a plan B. I had no idea what I was going to do, but you know what I'm saying? there are a lot of people who have a plan B that's not in line with your passion. So if you have a plan B, line it up with that passion, what you love to do. Find a way to make it happen. My daughter, at the age of 15, she was the one that would listen to me when I decided that I was going to be a motivational speaker. And she's chasing her dream as a baker. And I love it because she's done that all this time and she's getting ready to open up a bakery. But she's also said to me, you know, Dad, I love this, but I think there's something else that I could do. And so we talked about what else you could do. Now it's business coaching to business, right? Business coaching. You know, she's done all this work to create a successful business. So now business, she can teach how to bake different things, different some of the tips that she used. So there's always something out there that you can do. Just make sure it's in line with that passion. Of something else I'll say, and I'll shut up right here. I always understand that your plan isn't the plan. So when
Yeah.
your plan gets adjusted, just know that it's being moved into a better direction for you. So that direction is going to require you to challenge yourself, take risk to get better. And as you get better, your life is going to not get back to the same place, but it's going to go beyond that.
Thank you. That's I think that's very, very true of like just who cares about what you think, about what other people think about you.
Yeah.
Um, like a quote that hit me was that I don't want to live my life. I'm blanking out. It was
That's
something about like how don't live your life pleasing other people because if someone else is you're not gonna make everyone happy. Like for example, like I guess this podcast idea. There's gonna be tons of people who I guess shit on the idea like, oh, this
yeah.
is it's cringe, whatever, whatever. But I don't know. I also think there's a lot of people who are like, this is a very good idea, very cool idea. You
Right.
can make everyone happy, so like why even care about those who don't? Um, we're kind of. I want to ask one last question, man. Like seriously, I
Right.
appreciate your time, but if you were to give, um, just like your younger self or someone in a similar position of someone who's down on themselves or someone who's directionless, doesn't really know where to go in the middle of college or in high school or whatnot, like what would be your piece of advice, like your one piece of advice to that person to get them to where they want to be?
I'd say make this connection with you. So that's important because you can't go where everybody else wants you to go and be happy. You have to go where you want to be. And so I look at it as this puzzle that we're all connecting, and it's no pretty pattern, picture, or design. You know, you go in the store and you pick up a puzzle box and you buy it because of the way it looks. Well, this one is given to you to put together based off of the vision that you have for yourself. And it all starts with you connecting with you. If you make this number one connection right here, you can accomplish whatever it is you want in life. You'll go out there and you'll connect with those individuals who want to help you. You'll connect with those individuals you want to help. And then there'll be individuals that you'll connect with that will help you and that you'll work together with to connect with others, man, and do great things. But you got to make that connection here because if you don't know what you want, you'll never get what you want and you'll never be happy.
I don't think that's very, very true, man. Seriously, I appreciate that. But yeah, I guess this is the wrap of the very first episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint. Seriously, man, I appreciate it so much. You've been a fantastic first guest, and I'm surprised you even said yes because we have like no one viewing this. But it's nice to be with you, man. Seriously, you've offered so much wisdom, and I really cannot be more thankful. Seriously, man, you're honestly an inspiration, and really, I can tell that you're going places as well. You're a fantastic motivational speaker. You really speak to people, and seriously, man, like I appreciate it. You're a fantastic person.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate the opportunity. I was shocked when I saw the email. So thank you very much. I applaud you. You said this is your very first one. So I know you're going through some mental quicksand to get it started. I think you
Definitely,
touched on it.
definitely
What
am.
everybody else is gonna think. What is anybody gonna watch it? Is anybody gonna like it? I'm gonna tell you this. Don't worry about it. You just put it together. When I put together my team to create the mentoring business that we did, one of the things that I told them, I said, look, it doesn't matter what we don't have, what we don't know. Our job is to put it together. And as we put it together, it's connected us to some people that have helped us along the way. And so now in me, you got somebody that's willing to help you out, to help you
Thank
get
you.
that out there as best I can. I will support you. I will definitely put you out there as far as on my TikTok and interview and everything else I can possibly do to bring some attention to you and what you're doing, because I think you're doing a great thing. I think when you realize where you want to take your show and how you want to produce it, it's going to go great. You're going to really reach out and connect with other people. I'm telling you,
Thank you.
it'll be a beautiful thing.
Thank you. All right, man. This is a wrap. Thank you guys for viewing this if you're on YouTube or whatnot. And I'll see you later, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate
All
it.
right. Take care, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.